Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. I'm Glazer of the Snap Judgments Podcast, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. We'll have a new episode that features both the Savage Yeti and Doug Pie on the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube in just a couple of hours from watching this, 11 a.m. Eastern. So please check that out. Link will be in the description. Here, what we do is we give you the very best decks before other creators notice. And today, I have a doozy for you. I found a destroy deck that has stats that are through the roof on every different tracker I could find. I sort from either 70 or 80 to 100. 70 or 80 to 99, 100 where I have to. And I find the decks that have the best win rate and cube rate. There's one that just no one's talking about. So I built it, I played it, I took it into Conquest, and I just started rocking games. This deck is something that you need to try out if you haven't tried it. Subscribe to get a new deck every day. You actually get two every day. The second deck is going to be the only negative deck I've ever enjoyed. I think it's a ladder deck, not a conquest deck, but it is really fun and pretty strong. And negative is not my style, so if I'm saying this one's good, then you know it's good. Before we get to that, though, I want to talk about this bundle that you see on the screen in front of you. This is the Not Quite a Bird bundle. It is $30. You can see I have the Marvel Snap Zone article right here by, I want to say, our friend Carolus. Yep, our friend Carolus. Hey, Carolus. $30 for 1,000 tokens, 310 Darkhawk boosters, a variant, and an avatar. That's an atrocious deal. That is the worst financial deal I think they have ever offered for one variant. What they're really selling you here, they're actually selling you here, is Darkhawk. They're saying, hey, if you want this Series 4 card, give us $30. And you, like literally as soon as you're done with the tutorial, for the week this is available, can buy that card. That is a terrible business practice. We, as a community, do not want to have to spend $30 for a Series 4 card. That's an absurd rate. That if people buy this, they're going to do this again. They're going to lock important cards in Series 4, and they're going to try and make it pay. Please, please, please do not buy this bundle. Do not encourage Chicken Dinner's worst business decision so far. All right. One more time before we get to that destroy deck. Give me a sub. Let's look at the deck. This is Destroy 101. This is the most basic B destroy deck in the world, and let me just tell you, it rocks. First and foremost, the thing a lot of Deadpool decks do wrong. I know Spessy is like a really big advocate of this, and it breaks my heart because I love Spessy, but I don't think he's right about this at all. He thinks these decks need Deadpool to compete. Nope. You don't even need Deadpool on the board on the last turn with this deck. Deadpool's value is you can do one of two things, right? You can end up playing Deadpool and Death toward the end of the game, ideally on turn 5, not turn 6, so you can still null on 6. The other major use is Deadpool does a really great job at making your Venom and Null big. Venom and Null are the actual keys to the deck. What you want to do early is you want to use fundamentally Bucky and Wolverine to try and get some decent power on the board. A zero cost Sabretooth really helps with that as well. Deathlock really helps with that as well, right? You end up with like 10, 11 power in a couple lanes thanks to these cards. Then you want to eat as much of that as possible with Venom. Fundamentally, what this does is start to make Null huge. It also makes Death really cheap. You've got a bunch of power on the board because Wolverine's not going anywhere. Nova's spread power. Deadpool just keeps getting bigger. Bucky becomes 7 power when you kill him and then eat him with Venom, right? Like, there's a lot of ways. Yondu is the power he killed plus himself dying. That's a lot of different ways to get power in this deck, right? So then your Venom ends up like 13, 14 power. He ends up in the same lane with like a 4, 6 power Wolverine. You can drop, if you're feeling real spicy, a Death in that lane or another lane. And then last turn, you just drop Null, and Null is like 30 power. He's bigger than Hulk. He's bigger than everything. Once in a while, that's not going to go off. You're going to draw things in a weird order. It's just not going to go perfectly. It happens way more consistently than it looks immediately like it's going to happen. When it happens, you see the power. You're dropping bigger than those Kitty Pride decks that are everywhere. You're dropping bigger than infinite nonsense in the Lockjaw, Janejaw decks. It is fan freaking tastic. Killmonger adds a little bit of extra power here in controlling a lot of the opponent's board. The deck that this has the worst matchup with, it beats the crap out of wave decks too, by the way. The deck that this has had the most trouble with is lane lockdown. It actually needs space to play cards, and it takes a little while to ramp up its power. So if the lanes are locked off, like Spider-Man on top of a storm will often beat this deck. But very, very few other things will. Killmonger does an excellent job at evening up that matchup. For whatever reason, when I saw that matchup, Killmonger was allergic to my hand. But Killmonger does a great job because killing their Sunspot and their Misty Knight does a fantastic job of sort of screwing up their slow power gain. Now, they're still skipping for that big Hulk, right? But they're no longer getting nearly as many benefits from it. Also, really good against negating stuff as a general rule because you are eating your junk. Be very careful with Deadpool, though. If you're playing negative stuff, you really don't want Deadpool to be taking those inflicts because if he's a 0, doubling it 1,000 times doesn't matter, right? But even just every point lower is 2 points later. It's the basic gist of the deck. This deck is just really strong. I was like, this isn't going to be that good. I'm not sure it's worth it. I was wrong. This deck is crazy. Two different things I want to mention. Some versions, instead of Yondu, are running Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl is potentially one extra kill. Don't think it's worth it. The extra power of Yondu in one location has some real value in this deck. That he can destroy a big card has some real value. And if you destroy Yondu, you're only losing one less card than you would if you played specifically Killmonger on Squirrel Girl. The other major thing is this deck would love a Shang-Chi. If you can find the spot, please feel free. I couldn't quite bring myself to cut any of these cards, but there's versions that are very successful that run Shang-Chi as well. If you're playing this in Conquest mode, I don't hate it. I prefer to just go bigger than my opponent's BS instead of trying to do any silly shenanigans that way. However, on the last turn of the game, something like Shang-Chi and Death or Shang-Chi and Deadpool would be an absolutely beautiful play. That is this deck. Please try it out again as you win games with this. Remember to throw me that sub. I found this one for you guys. In addition, like the video, ring that bell. You don't want to miss the next time we do this. This deck is legit. I'm not sure if it's like the top of tier 1, but I think it's like an A rank level deck. All right. Our next deck for today. Everybody ready? Let's go. We've got Jonathan Chown. It's at Chown Jonathan over on Twitter. He hit Infinite with a negative deck. He hits Infinite with this negative deck most seasons since these cards have been available. He used to do it with Beast in the Bass spot, but the Beast bonus makes him particularly bad in Mr. Negative decks for obvious reasons. A 4/3 Beast is a real bad draw. This deck right now, though, is really strong. It fundamentally needs to compete one of two cards. It needs either Mr. Negative or Bast, but if it has either, it can compete most of the time. Bast just pumps literally everything in the deck, and if you haven't just played out some cards and then played like an Iron Man that's a 5/3 on 5, and then copied it with a 3/3 Mystique into another card on the last turn of a game, you're missing out. If that last turn is Mysterio, you just like win. You don't even need Negative. Darkhawk has no real way except Korg to get that benefit in this deck. However, a 4/3 Darkhawk, if they have 6 cards left in deck, is still... Sorry, if they have 3 cards left in deck, is still a 4/9, which is great stats with Bast, or a 4/10 if you negative that Darkhawk. This is especially useful because this tries to take advantage of if you have Jane Foster early, you get to draw a bunch of zeros. It feels real good to on turn 5 play a 5/8, and sometimes it's a 5/3 because of Bast. You won't care, just trust me. And then just draw like Iron Man, Darkhawk, and then like you've got a Mystique in hand. You're just like, all right, I'm gonna go to town last turn. Reason you can't play this in Conquest mode, deck is super strong. Oh, drawing a Hit Monkey is also great. But the reason you can't really play this in Conquest mode is Wave, at least in my version of the meta, is absolutely everywhere. Fine. Like, it's still a great ladder deck. You see Wave, you just run. You see a deck that you think is running Wave, you just basic play lines would be something like Bast or Korg into Zabu into ideally Mr. Negative. If you miss Zabu, you'd like to be playing Bishop at that turn, or you play whatever one-drop Sunspot Korg Bast that you didn't earlier. Don't want to drop Mysterio yet, even if you have them. Turn 4, you Mr. Negative. Again, if you don't have Negative, now you're playing Darkhawk or whatever other combination of things. If you haven't seen Bast or Negative by then, though, you're probably running. Just walk away, make your life easier. Turn 5, you're like, if you're Janing, if you have her, right? Like, if you could play Jane on turn 5 and Negative is out, you play Jane. If not, you're playing Iron Man. And then you're trying to copy Iron Man. Or if you've got a bunch of zeros from Jane, you just drop a bunch of zeros and go to town. This deck is real fun and real good. It is the most consistent Mr. Negative deck I've ever played. Does it have the uber high ceiling of some of the completely broken other nonsense? No, but it just wins games. It puts power in places opponents aren't ready, and it plays a nice, consistent upper mid-range game. All right, that's today's video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check the Marvel Snap Zone YouTube, where you will, if not right now, at 11 a.m. Eastern in a couple hours, be able to find our episode of Snap Judgments. Don't forget to check out Marvel Snap Zone for all your Marvel Snap needs. Subscribe to get a new deck every single weekday. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate y'all. Catch you tomorrow.